Good evening and thanks for joining us on Good Question. My name is Travis Coffman. I'm your host from News Talk K57. And tonight on the program, hey, we've got the governor of Guam. The governor of Guam is going to be joining us tonight on the show. And the governor, as we speak, you just recently vetoed a measure that will allow the raises to move forward. Would it be okay if we talked a little bit about those raises tonight?
I'd love to.
Okay, well, I figured that our viewers would like to hear about the hay as well, and so we'll talk about that and maybe the upcoming State of the Island address. This is Good Question. You're going to want to keep it right here tonight.
Get the story from the Pacific News Center. Get both sides. Get it right. Get it from reporters you can trust. Clint Rogel, Janella Carrera, Betsy Brown, Roselle Romanes, and Kevin Kerrigan. We've got the story. You can get it too. The Pacific News Center. News you can trust.
Good evening and thanks for joining us on Good Question. My name is Travis Coffman from News Talk K57's The Big Show from 2 to 6 every afternoon. That's on radio, and let's be honest, not everybody listens to the radio. And so we bring the big guest, well, to television. Again, Governor Calvo joins us tonight on the program. Thanks so much for coming by.
Good evening, and thank you so much for inviting me here this evening as well.
Absolutely. Well, you're certainly the man of the hour. The hay raises, those have been talked about, bandied about, and now you've made a decision that they are going to move forward as proposed.
Yeah, again, thank you, Travis. I want to most of all thank those hardworking GovGuam employees who have been so patient over the years in regards to getting a pay increase. And again, this is something that has been 20 years in the making. It's unfortunate that again, when we came into office, I had to make a very difficult decision on suspending the hay increase as a result of our very difficult financial circumstances at the time. But we've righted the financial ship of state. We're looking at 2 consecutive years of surplus in terms of government accounting and finances. And we've built a stable platform now so we can move forward with the implementation of the hay plan. And that occurred with the veto of Bill 268 and with no movement towards an override. Then the implementation took into effect, and every one of our hardworking GovGuam employees that were part of this pay plan received that increase as of Valentine's Day.
Now, there's a whole lot of discussion, and I don't think everybody quite understands the difference between your proposal, the administration's proposal, and the proposal that the legislature came back with. You had proposed what you termed a partial implementation, and the legislature looked at it, looked at all the salaries, and cut a few here and there, and adopted a plan that would allow for full implementation. What are we basically talking about as far as the differences?
I want to make a correction. I wish I could take credit for saying it's my plan, or the governor's plan. It wasn't the governor's plan versus the legislature's plan. This was a plan put forward by the Hay Group, a very respected organization that does this not only with the community of Guam, but other governments and other businesses in regards to setting and calculating wage scales. So this was a group that this was their expertise. They spent many years in working in this evaluation, coming together with the Department of Administration. And so with that in mind, I want to thank those that were involved in this. But what happened was, unfortunately, when the plan was presented to the legislature, and within a very short period of time, a Bill 268 came out. And you know, the major problem there was, aside from philosophically building more inequities, there was an issue on fiscal responsibility, because the legislature had appropriated for the current fiscal year only $7 million to fund it. And when we had saw that, that is why we made a presentation that the unfolding of the plan for the general pay plan would be only a 50% implementation as of February, with the other 50% taking into effect in August of 2014. And that was where there was a major discrepancy. With the 268, it looked towards a full implementation starting in February.
Okay, starting at
so,
100%
yes,
for everybody.
And that would have caused about a $7 million shortfall. So by July of this year, we would have had to make some major drastic decisions, such as cutting the pay increase. And that just didn't make sense. You know, these are hardworking families. You give them this pay that was calculated to them, and then you cut it off just a few months later.
Well, that's something that you actually had to do shortly after taking office. Everybody had received, well, not everybody, but a whole lot of folks in the classified employees, 3,700, I think, around that number, had received a raise, and then you had to put the brakes on it.
And that was interesting because I was getting criticized by the legislature for suspending it at the time. You think I want to do it? You know, the problem was we were at a $300 million deficit, accumulated deficit. We came in with about a negative 17 cash balance at the bank. So we had this plan that had been implemented by the previous administration just a few months earlier. But how do you move forward in a plan such as that when your finances are at a shambles? We corrected the ship of state. Again, we had a surplus year for 2013, and we feel very confident, 2012, and we're going to have a surplus year for 2013. So the climate in terms of the financial stability of the government of Guam has taken about a 180-degree turn. And that is why we felt it was important to make good in this promise with the implementation of the Hay Scale.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the changes that were made from the original recommendations. We had Shane Nata on the program, a very knowledgeable guy, talking about, he originally worked with, as you know, the Hay team, and he talked about some of the core differences in the plan that was recommended this time around and the plan that was recommended last time around. And one key difference is that he got to participate as part of the financial team to take a look at how much this would exactly cost, whereas that last time around they didn't. But another thing was that things were included other employees, employees like elected officials, and that is something that got a whole lot of conversation going, particularly with the amount of the raises.
Yeah. And that, you know, when come the original 2010, there were a lot of recommendations made. There were a lot of complaints. One of them was obviously the issue of compression, and some of the higher end employees have been working many years. They hit a ceiling. So we made changes on that as well. There was other complaints, particularly from the mayors and elected officials, that, hey, we have not had a pay increase in so long, and it had an impact not only with the mayors and vice mayors, but it also had with all their unclassified force that works under the mayor's office. So with these comments that came out as a result of the original 2010 plan, there were changes that were made to incorporate those concerns. But how are you selective now with one elected group or the other? So we included all of the elected officials. And it became apparent as you start looking at certain types of positions. Director of Administration, Benita Maglonia, CPA, the top fiscal person for the government of Guam, getting paid less than Josh Tenorio, who runs the finances for the judiciary. The fire chief, Joey Nicholas, he gets paid as an Army captain more than he does as a fire chief. He comes back from Afghanistan, and because of now the pay scales that are for law enforcement, actually a big chunk of his firemen are getting paid higher than the fire chief. Come to think of it, the airport fire chief gets paid more than the fire chief of the whole Guam, the Guam Fire Department. You could go on the list of inequities.
So you're looking at these guys as
look at this. The elected
people.
attorney general gets paid less than the legislative majority council. So the lawyer for the Democratic majority in the legislature gets paid more than the elected attorney general of Guam. This was not supposed to be such a highly politicized type of movement. I was hoping that there would be more of an understanding and a respect of the work was done by the Hay Group and Department of Administration. Unfortunately, it didn't occur. But The good news is we've gone through, past all the obstacles, and these folks are going to be getting a pay raise.
Sure. I think that any time anyone it's suggested that someone receives a $10,000, $20,000 raise, people are going to ask some questions, and you know, depending on what you're making, the less you're making, the probably more questions you're going to ask. But the question that I haven't heard put to you is, how do you go to the private sector and say, look, you make your raises incrementally, you work in the private sector, if you got a if you've got a 2%, a 4% raise, you know, you'd be jumping up and down. But a 30% raise, or it happens all at once.
And for a lot of the private sector, a lot of it does through market forces and trying to attract the best quality talent. With the government of Guam, it's been, you know, because of the difficult financial position of the government of Guam, there's been 20 years since a reevaluation and a change in the complete pay scale of the government workers. I can't tell you, when I came into office, I wanted the best people. That's why I got a CPA in charge of DOA, and why I got an engineer in charge of DPW. But there are some folks that I wanted in my administration, some folks in the media. And you know, I wanted them because I wanted the top quality workforce. But I understand there's a bunch of people that turned down my offer to serve the public, to serve the people of Guam, because they had bills to pay. They were getting higher pay in the private sector, and I'm talking top management positions. And they had mortgages to pay, and they had to put bread on their table. So I understood when they rejected my request and my offer to join the government, to serve the public. The public demands more from their government. But and by the way, that's a realistic expectation, because we've had mediocrity for far too long. But that means also you need to bring in top quality talent, and you have to hold them accountable. And so, unfortunately, through whether it's the market forces of the private sector getting top leadership, or even competition between the general line agencies and the autonomous agencies, unfortunately, for too long, we have been wanting in terms of compensation. So I really believe that the Hay Group and Department Administration did a great job in trying to level the playing field.
You want good people, you're going to have to offer attractive wages. Interesting thought. Governor Eddie Calvo was with us tonight on Good Question. We've been talking about the Hay study here at the end of the coming week. We've got the State of the Island address on the way. I was hoping that we could take a break and maybe get a bit of a preview as to what to expect as far as the message.
I'll take a break. Let me have some of your Java here, and then we'll come back.
All right, makes sense. Good question. My name is Travis. I'm here with Governor Calvo. We'll be back with a preview of State of the Island right after these.
Burn up the bandwidth. Guam's hottest talk comes to your smartphone with News Talk K57's streaming apps. The latest in news, weather, and talk in the palm of your hand. Plus, exclusive features let you talk back to us via email. Visit our webpage and see breaking news on PNC's Twitter page. Smartphone users can now download the free app, which will stream all day, every day, and anywhere. Look in your platform's app store for K57 and download it today.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight once again on Good Question. Governor Eddie Calvo is with us, and we've been talking about the Hay study, a series of raises for government employees. And as we went to the break, there was a point that you were wanting to make about your time in the private sector.
Yeah, you know, before I was in public service, I worked in the private sector, both in a construction supply house as well as Pepsi-Cola bottling company of Guam. My term at Pepsi, those were the boom years. Remember, those were the late 80s, early 90s. And I remember at the time, for a refrigeration department, remember this was 2% unemployment. This was 10% growth in the economy annually. We were working with GCC, Votech, and we were getting their students in their refrigeration department for Pepsi. And we had internship programs. So here we are helping to pay for these young, bright kids coming out of GCC, and once they graduate, they work for Pepsi. But in that time of growth, we had a hard time keep retention, and there was turnover. So, and we, of course, with a boom, and you never know you're in a boom until you're out of it.
Sure.
It was us evaluating what was going on, looking at the competition, what they were paying, and whether it was a hotel or another company. So we made 2 or 3 major adjustments in our pay scales over a 2-year period. And a lot of it had to do with keeping quality talent. So, you know, I do have experiences in the private sector. And when we did keep top quality talent, and whether it was in a refrigeration department, a vending department, a sales department, or a manufacturing department, it allowed us to become the #1 soft drink bottler and distributor, not only for Guam and Micronesia, but one of the top Pepsi bottlers worldwide. But you know, we had to make changes and adjustments in our personnel costs, and we had to pay the wages that were necessary to keep quality talent. And I just want to bring that perspective, because I've been in both. I've been in the public sector and I've been in the private sector. So that same philosophy I'm trying to engender also in our administration, the government of Guam.
Governor Eddie Calvo is with us tonight. We're talking about the Hay study and just taking care of employees in general. And you've got an address to all of your employees and all of the people of Guam. It's coming up, the State of the Island address. The last time around, it seems like we spent a lot of time talking about cleaning up government finances. What do you think we'll be talking about this time?
Well, first of all, I'm inviting everyone, the general public, my bosses. We're going to be having a different venue. It will be at Plaza de España, the beautifully renovated and Plaza de España. It will be February 20th at 6:30 p.m. So we're anticipating beautiful weather. Everyone boil your rocks. Anyone who knows what boiling rocks does, it keeps the rain away.
Okay.
But I think the general message that will, and I don't want to get into the details, you know, we've talked enough about the past and some of the hurdles that we've had to go through. I think now, with things that are stabilized in our government, things are looking much more promising. It's an opportunity for our administration to speak on where we're at right now and where we intend to go. And I talk about not just a government, but a people, the people of Guam.
Okay. Now, why did you decide to move the address from the legislature over to the Plaza de España?
First of all, I want to thank the legislature, Speaker Wampet. She's been a great hostess for these past few years. But you know, the problem with the legislative hall is its size. And we're able to bring in a lot of the dignitaries, VIPs, from the government and some of the consular corps, as well as some other officials from other federal agencies and the private sector. But it just, there's a problem with space. I think it was important that we allow for all the general public, whoever's interested, having that opportunity to come and listen to the State of the Territory speech, State of the Island speech. So that part of that was it was limitations. The other thing is, gosh, if anyone's ever been to the Plaza de España lately, it's something to behold. It's a beautiful, actually it's a beautiful testament to the history of Guam. You know, those arches they've been there before America became a nation. If you take a look at the plaque there, it was 1748 when the Plaza de España was built, the original governor's palace. And that's some years ago. And so I think there's a lot of history, and I think we should be proud of our history. So I believe that with that venue, not only does it bring more people in, but it kind of puts us in a perspective of where we've been, so we can also look towards the future and where we want to go.
It is a gorgeous site. I visited the other day as we are planning our live coverage of the State of the Island event for both television and for radio. You should know that at home. The State of the Island is scheduled for Thursday the 20th at 6:30, and we will be carrying it live here on News Talk K57 and on PNC. And it'll be following the news immediately because we're interested. We would like to see what you have planned as far as the address for the people of Guam. Now, breaking out of tradition from the legislature, being in the open air with all that fresh air doesn't mean that the speech is going to be longer, does it?
You know, I've learned. I think my first speech was a couple hours long, so we intend to keep this under an hour.
Oh, okay.
And, that's why we can't focus too much. As much as I would like to recount history and talk about a lot of the good things that we've done, we're going to talk about some of the good things. I wish we could say all the good things we've done, but we also understand that we want to keep this thing within a reasonable time period.
I see. I see. Now, I understand that you have invited all of the government employees, like as in via invitation.
Yep, I'm inviting everyone, our hardworking GovGuam employees, and also our hardworking private sector, all our constituents, all the people of Guam, we're inviting.
What's the purpose of the State of the Island Address? I mean, really, why do you have one?
The State of the Island, kind of similar to the State of the State of any state, or the State of the Union with the President, it's a time to assess from the perspective of a chief executive of really the condition of the Union. For me, of course, it's a condition of the island. And it can differ. It can look towards the past and assess where we've been and where we're at now, or it can be any other topics. And as far as I'm concerned, for this State of the Island, it will be focusing on the here and the now, where we're at, a little bit of history, but really where we're at, and then I think most importantly, where we're going.
You know, you mentioned that you've had time to give a few State of the Island addresses, and you've learned in your time as governor. Has your vision or your thoughts about what a governor should do, what a governor should be, what the job of the governor is, has the chief executive sort of definition changed for you?
I think for a chief executive, in order to be a good governor or a good father or a good, whatever organization, public or private sector, is you better have good ears, you better have a good feel of the people. And if you're a father, I try to know what my kids are doing, listen to my kids, listen to my wife, and get a good perspective where they're at. As a governor, you gotta know your people, and you gotta listen to the people, and you gotta feel both their triumphs, but also some of the tragedies. So as a governor, I've been here 3 years. It's sometimes, and you've seen how my schedule is. The scheduling is so tight, but I've always told our people, folks, you got to find a way for me to, as I'm scheduled, I've got to be able to feel the people, listen to them, breathe them in, hug them. I just came in from a reading at one of our elementary schools with second graders in Head Start. When you sit down and you look at them, and they're every demographic, every race, and you read them a story. But then if anyone's seen how I act, I ask them questions, and we have a dialogue. Mm-hmm. That's part of being what a governor is all about. And it's been the most enjoyable job I've ever had and experience. But of course, give me some gray hair.
Sure.
I guess that if there was any lesson I'd give to anybody, any advice on being a governor or being a head of a household or anything in that type of a manner, it's keep close to the people that you love so dearly. Having
this job, working for the media, I know that generally it is when things don't go well. Those are the times that make the news. Mm-hmm. Now, things don't go well on a lot of different fronts every single day. How do you get used to dealing with that? There's people constantly saying, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. Yeah. Wake up in the morning and deal with that.
First, I know the good news is I've got a whole bunch of good people around me. Aside from, I think I'm trying to listen as much as to what the issues are with the whole community. I've hired a good group of people. I've got great workers, great advisors, great employees, and I listen to them. And then there are also the core values, what have built me as a person, and I've got to always remain steadfast to those values. So you can listen to all the advice, and I've got some ultra liberals in one end and ultra conservatives in the other, and then you kind of put it all together, and then you listen and you hear and you see what is all around you in this community. And then you reconcile with what your values are, and then you make decisions. And so, whatever decision I make, it cannot disconnect from what my foundation is all about. And with that, usually, then you can't find a disconnect in a policy or decision you made a year ago to decision you make today, because there's still that common thread of what your foundation is all about, your core values, and that's what I try to do. So, they won't say, Governor, you did this, and then you did that. Now, sometimes I evolve based on more knowledge that has been put forward by me, but usually, even with new circumstances and and an education, which I get every day, it doesn't really change your core values. And for a governor and any elected official, hey, you work for the people. You are not on top. You know, sometimes people get imperial, and whether it's a mayor, a governor, a president, or whatever, you got to remember you're an elected official. All those people that you see every day, they are your bosses. That simple concept.
So if you're watching right now, you're his boss. And
you're the boss.
He realizes that. And we're going to take your boss into the break. This is a good question. My name is Travis Coffman. We'll be back to wrap it up with Governor Eddie Calvo right after these.
Help make a difference in our community and join the fight against crime. Tune in to PNC News every Wednesday night at 6 on ABC 7 and on Fox 6 at 7 p.m. for the Guam Crime Stoppers Crime of the Week. Each week, the Guam Police Department will highlight an unsolved crime, hoping you may have information relating to the case. Join Crime Stoppers Coordinator Officer Paul Tapao every Wednesday night on PNC News for the Guam Crime Stoppers Crime of the Week.
Thanks again for joining us tonight on Good Question. My name is Travis Coffman, usually the host of News Talk K57's The Big Show. I'm on K57 along with Ray Gibson and Patty Arroyo, and we talk about political issues every day. But not everybody listens to the radio, but watching this television show, you might realize that we get to talk to some newsmakers, and Governor Calvo is one of them. And so thank you, Governor, for agreeing to be on Good Question. Our last segment, we were talking about your desire to meet with the people, and it's a tough thing. Everyone wants to talk with you, and it's usually their most important thing. So you're dealing with a whole line of people who want to talk to you about their most important thing. How do you prioritize that?
That's some of the difficult things here. I have a scheduler, and you know, they if I'm in any topic or any discussion for longer than 15 minutes, sometimes that's longer than it should be, because of my schedule. Now, the tough thing is sometimes I'll go to a function, and whether it's a fandango or funeral or fiesta, and someone will say, "Governor, I've been trying to meet with you for 2 months. I talked to your secretary," and then usually that's when I call my secretary. I don't know how you do it, but find a way to get it in there. So sometimes the responsibilities of my position, I want to reach out to as much people as possible. And that's where sometimes the complication is. And also, I understand that, in an island the size of Guam, we've got 170,000 people, each one with a different perspective, each one with a high priority in terms of them, what's important for them and their families. You have to understand as an elected official, especially as a governor, the buck stops here, that when you make a decision, whatever that decision is, some folks are going to be happy about the decision, some of them aren't. And as long as you believe that you looked at the body of facts around you, you listen to those around you and the community, and then you focus on those core values that you have, and then you made that decision, that's the best you can do. So again, you asked me about a governor or chief executive. The danger is to me, is a governor that doesn't make a decision. The good Lord and the people have put you in a place and a responsibility that you are there to make decisions. And so, with that, understanding that if you make a decision, then, some people will like it, some people won't.
That probably would shortly but sweetly explain the Hayes series of raises. There are some people that will disagree with that. Governor, we all time, but we could spend a whole another half an hour talking about it. Here's my one question, and it's a yes or no answer. Are we really able to afford these raises?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Good question. My name is Travis Coffman. Thanks, Governor, for stopping by tonight. We sure appreciate you watching as well. We'll see you next time.